The White House is trying to do both. Blame Putin, blame the oil and gas companies, but Americans just don't agree.
An investigation continues behind me. It is now in its 13th hour after this horrible tragedy happened.
Twitter shares, they are surging right now because Tesla CEO Elon Musk has now taken a passive stake.
CNN has now taken turns at slamming the president of the United States. Joe Biden issues some new gun control proposals in the wake of a terrible shooting in Sacramento. Elon Musk has bought Twitter. California diversity requirements have been smacked down by a judge. All that and more coming up on this episode of Daily Caller Live. My name is Jobob. Daily Caller Live starts right now. Okay, hold on. Starts right now.
3, 2, 1.
Here we go!
That might be the only brown guy on earth named Jobob.
That is actually her name, Jobob.
From a dingy bunker, completely cut off from the outside world. Had a little bit of technical difficulty there for a quick second. Thanks for sticking through it. A lot of stuff to talk about today. A lot of stuff happened over the weekend. The president got involved in another gun control debate, debacle, whatever you want to call it. Terrible shooting in Sacramento, but a lot of missing points there that I feel like aren't being talked about at all. So we got all of that coming up. Elon Musk bought a sizable portion of Twitter, so we'll talk about that. But I wanted to get to this first. CNN, of all places, is now taking turns at taking jabs at the president of the United States. Joe Biden, obviously, approval ratings are down super low. If you're watching this, I'm seeing a couple thousand of you watching this. I know we're early on here for this little pitch and ploy. Just click the little like button, click the little share button, because I feel like people need to see this. This is, again, CNN, fake news CNN, the people who had employed one of the Cuomo brothers that still employs Brian Stelter, Don Lemon, has gone so woke during the President Trump administration, is now getting some sense of realism. Well, I can't decide if it's that they're going back to their old ways of good journalism, or it's just so bad they can't help but talk about it. But check this out from a panel on CNN the other day, talking about Joe Biden and his poor policy decisions. Watch this.
We can talk about a jobs report here. We can talk about the latest PCE numbers of the CPI, and all of us former Bloomberg reporters can really get into the weeds, right? But there's one number that they can't really change right now, and that is what the placard says at the local gas station.
Yeah.
And that number is high, and that's a daily jobs report that voters, that Americans, consumers see every day, and there's nothing the White House can do about it other than bring down the price of gasoline, which is tough.
And maybe blame Putin. And this week the tagline was the Putin price hikes or something to that effect.
Look, when I drive past gas stations that say blame Putin more than they say let's go Brandon, I'll know the White House. I'll know the White House has been successful in messaging it.
That is fascinating in its own right. But take a look at this Quinnipiac poll. Americans just don't buy that this is related to the war in Ukraine, and most of it, frankly, is not. 41% say it's Biden's policies, just 24% say the war in Ukraine. 24% also say, the oil and gas companies are raising prices, but the White House is trying to do both. Blame Putin, blame the oil and gas companies, but Americans just don't agree.
That is, again, on CNN talking about what is the actual problem here that the Biden administration is trying to shift focus towards. Clearly, the last 2 weeks, Jen Psaki in the White House his entire office has been saying, well, it's the Putin price hikes and the gas is going up because of Putin, which is not at all true. Gas prices were surging way before Russia decided to invade Ukraine. And they've been trying to push that for the last 2 weeks. That Quinnipiac poll that's still up on our screen says that Americans just don't buy it. That's the thing. 41% of Americans believe, the plurality of Americans believe that, no, it's Biden's fault. And only 24%, so not even a quarter of Americans, actually buy the fact that the gas price surge is related to Vladimir Putin invading Ukraine. Remember that one unhinged individual that was on TikTok that was going around LA and saying, look at this, it's $7. Putin, we're sending you a bill. which was a ridiculous thing to say then, and it also is ridiculous to say now. But speaking of the president and some nonsense that's coming out of the White House, want to get this straight first. Horrible shooting in Sacramento over the weekend. Saturday night, 6 people killed in a shooting, a dozen, probably maybe more, injured in Sacramento, downtown Sacramento at around 2 a.m. Now, that being said, there's a lot of stuff that's missing. This is not at all losing any empathy with the families and the people that are affected by a terrible tragedy. But on Sunday, I was reading a lot of stuff about it. And a lot of stuff happened since then. The president has issued a statement. Gavin Newsom has issued a statement. The governor of California. A bunch of people are talking about gun control now. There's a lot of different angles to this story that I feel like you got to stay tuned for and pay attention to. If you haven't already, there's way more of you watching than have clicked the little like button or the little share button or the little angry button, because you're going to get angry about this. The president is pushing crazy gun control laws. Look, there are reasonable gun control laws, I think. Like, probably, well, it's difficult. It's a very difficult thing. It's a slippery slope and all that sort of stuff. But he's pushing insane gun control laws on a national scale, and I feel like you got to hear about it. The president issued a statement, obviously giving condolences to the people that were affected by the shooting in Sacramento, but also said this: we also continue to call on Congress to act, ban ghost guns, which we won't go there as of yet, require background checks for all gun sales, ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. Now, those 3 have been in the liberal Democrat eye forever. Those aren't new, and frankly, nothing is going to get done about them. But then he inserts this sort of thing, which makes me wonder, this is interesting because this is weird and this is crazy. Then he says, repeal gun manufacturers' immunity from liability. That is the dumbest possible thing, literally the dumbest possible thing a president has ever said about gun control. He then says, pass my budget, yada, 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 yada. Congress needs to urgently act in the need to save lives. Here's a couple things that are going on right now in the Biden White House. Last week, so first things first, the polling around President Biden that came out early last week from NBC, of all places, Chuck Todd on Meet the Press, saying that pretty much everybody agrees that they disagree with the president. I think his disapproval rating is up like 73%. His approval rating is down below the 40s for the first time in the NBC poll. It is dismal. On top of that, there are so many other things that have happened surrounding the White House. Finally, last week, the Hunter Biden story was substantiated 500 days later after it came out originally from the New York Post. Remember, they got banned on Twitter for 2 weeks for not taking that tweet down. But now the New York Times, the Washington Post, CNN, all of your big lefty news outlets are finally saying, yeah, the Hunter stuff is actually true. New emails released that say, yes, Hunter did have active engagement in Ukrainian oil companies and Chinese oil companies, in which he is not an expert. So that is another issue that the Biden administration needs to quell. So what it looks like here from this statement, the president saying we need to, what is the word? Repeal gun manufacturers' immunity from liabilities, which is an impossible thing to do. It's effectively, you're saying families of victims can sue gun manufacturers if their loved one is unfortunately killed by a gun. If you're able to do that, anybody can sue any manufacturer of anything for anything. If you drive drunk on the road and you get in a car accident and you are killed by hitting a tree because you're drunk, your family would effectively be able to sue the car manufacturer. Well, if they weren't driving a car, being drunk would have had nothing to do with it. That's how ridiculous the repealing immunity from gun manufacturers' liability would be. Again, that's where we are. So then in my head, I'm thinking, well, why are they doing this? They know that's ridiculous. Obviously, they're trying to work their base and to get more support for what it is that they're doing. But why this and why now? So I started looking into the actual shooting. Again, this is not at all saying that I have no empathy for the people that were killed and their families that are affected. Terrible thing happened. Absolutely horrible. But it was missing a lot of the similar information from when we've seen these mass shootings occur in the past. If you remember, really, any of the big mass shootings that were just random acts of violence, one common thing happened. We found out who the person was who was doing the shooting very, very quickly. If you've noticed anything about the Sacramento shooting, we don't know yet, and they're still saying the suspects, multiple, are at large. Generally, when this stuff happens, and again, none of it's good, just saying generally when this happens, it is a single lone shooter, and generally they know that what they're doing is going to get them killed, and they end up getting killed or captured in some cases. But in almost all of these random shooting instances, the suspect is either killed or apprehended almost immediately. There is no information about the suspect whatsoever, so I started doing some digging. The LA Times had an interesting piece kind of recounting what happened on Saturday night. 7 paragraphs down in the LA County story, the LA Times story, was this random paragraph kind of smuggled between, well, gun control laws and safety of people out there, and here's what happened, and it happened. There's all of that stuff sandwiched in the middle of all of the actual information was this sentence. A motive for the violence was unclear. Law enforcement sources told the Times that the shooting involved gang members and associates. Okay, this is an entirely different thing. Again, I'll say this and continue to beat this down. This is not at all losing any sort of empathy or sympathy with the people that were shot and killed and their families. It is a terrible situation. But if this is a gang-related shooting, it is a different thing. Regardless of whether or not you want to believe it, it is not the same as a deranged individual deciding he's going to go kill people in the streets indiscriminately. They're now different things. Just to put this in perspective, 18 people were shot in Chicago over the weekend, one fatally. Last year, Chicago homicides reached 800, the most in 25 years. All gang-related in a city that has the strictest gun control laws. So, when Gavin Newsom in California, Governor of California, and the President of the United States are calling for more gun laws, if they're using this instance as an example to further those gun laws, why then aren't they looking at Chicago? Why then aren't they looking at Philadelphia? Why aren't they looking at the Bronx, in which terrible and unfortunate, but gang violence is massively prevalent? Well, that's because it happened in a public place at a public time, and unfortunately, probably killed or hurt some very innocent people that were not gang related. Now, what does that speak to? This is where I'm going with this. That to me does not speak to the fact that we need more gun control. That to me says that California as a state, Sacramento as a city, has gotten so weak on crime and cracked down so little on gang violence that the gang members in that state and in those areas have now said, we got to take a guy out. We're just going to do it whenever we want. We'll do it in broad daylight. We'll do it at 2 a.m. in the middle of a busy district. We don't care. If this turns out to be, and we don't know for a fact yet, but if this turns out to be a gang hit, that doesn't at all speak to gun control or gun violence measures or anything that the president or Gavin Newsom or any of your other big blue Democrat leaders are saying. None of that is relevant. What is relevant is that now gang members, apparently, if this turns out to be a gang hit, have the audacity to just do whatever they want whenever they want. That is the actual problem. Sorry, that was a little bit of a I went way longer on that than I was expecting to. Because that's what I think it is. Again, hidden in that Los Angeles Times article, a motive for violence is unclear. Law enforcement's told the Times that the shooting involved gang members and associates. If it is a gang hit, that does not diminish the tragedy whatsoever. I want to make sure we're clear on that. But if it's a gang hit, it is a very different thing than a mentally ill person shooting up a crowded area. It just is. And the arguments for gun control from the president, from a bunch of your big Democratic leaders, is not the same. None of this is the same. And so when you ask, why are they doing it then? Well, it's because they need to rally their base, because their poll numbers are lagging substantially. I'd be willing to bet that we're going to go a week here without really hearing anything, and unfortunately, it'll kind of fizzle out of the news. And then someone will say, oh, yeah, it was a big-time gang boss, and a rival gang member decided they wanted that to take that gang person out. I don't know. Is it terrible? Yes. Is it awful? Absolutely. But it is a different thing than the president and a lot of your mainstream media is trying to make it out to be. Dang. Where do we go from here? I guess we can stay in California, shuttering completely or going completely a different direction, but staying within California and the mismanaged state that is California. California diversity mandate has stopped. What is a diversity mandate? Well, a California law has, for the last couple of years, has required diversity on corporate boards of directors. That law has been struck down in a blow to the state's effort to address the racial and gender disparities in the workplace. Basically, California State Assembly, California legislature, and then signed into law by Gavin Newsom, said, hey, your board needs to be at least, what's the actual thing? 40% women or minorities or whatever it is. So if you don't have that makeup on your board of directors for a California headquartered company, you need to now put those people on your board, regardless of the fact if they're qualified. That has nothing to do with it. But you need to put the diversity people on your board, says the state of California. But that law was struck down in a court ruling over the weekend. In response to a lawsuit brought by Judicial Watch, a nonprofit conservative advocacy group, Judge Terry Green of Los Angeles Superior Court on Friday found that it violated the state constitution. The law, Assembly Bill 979, went into effect in 2020. It requires publicly traded companies based in California to have board members from underrepresented communities. Well, that's racist. Including several people of different races and ethnic groups and people who identify as gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender. Gavin Newsom, in signing the bill into law, proclaimed it a victory for racial justice and empowerment. So what happened is California Assembly and then therefore the California Senate and the California legislature as a whole passed a very racist bill. Gavin Newsom signed the racist bill and then claimed that it was against racism. Is what it is. But that law was struck down late last week by a judge saying, no, you can't do that. You can't discriminate against people for the job, which is what you would effectively be doing if you're forcing people to hire a more diverse, ethnically diverse population onto their board if they're a publicly held and traded company. So there's that. I want to get to the funny story of the day. By funny, I mean actually serious, could possibly be a great thing. Elon Musk now owns 9% of Twitter. A week ago, Elon Musk was asking his Twitter followers for views on their social media platform. Now, he bought nearly 10% of the company in a deal worth close to $3 billion. If you missed this, we talked about it, 2 weeks ago. Elon Musk tweeting out saying, hey, should we start our own social media platform? Because he doesn't like the censorship. He doesn't like any of that crap. Rightfully so, by the way. said, hey, should I start my own social media company? If anybody had the power and the money to do it, it would be Elon Musk. Turns out he just went and bought a huge chunk of Twitter. As you can see on this little chyron, let me make it bigger. Elon Musk is now just that brand thing happens to be right in the spot. Elon Musk happens to be the biggest shareholder in Twitter. Got 9.2%. The next group down's got 8.79%. It's a Vanguard group. Morgan Stanley's got 8%. And you can see going down, BlackRock's in there. Great. We won't go off on a BlackRock tangent. I feel like I've gone off enough today. But Elon Musk became the biggest shareholder on Twitter after buying 9.2% stake on March 14th. A new SEC filing reveals, sending the shares soaring 26%. The world's richest man owns quadrupled the shares of its founder, Jack Dorsey. His passive stake is valued up to $2.9 billion based on Friday's stock close. It has prompted Twitter's share prices to go up 26% in pre-market trading. Dang. So Elon Musk becoming the biggest shareholder in Twitter March 14th. So a couple weeks ago. That was right about the time when he was saying, hey, should I start my own social media platform? Everybody mocked him, and turns out he's doing it. So we'll see. Look, I'm for this. I've said this a number of times. I'll continue saying it. I'm not a big fan of, I will go on all the social media platforms. I will use all of the other social media platforms. But I would much rather the big social media platforms that people are already congregated around revise their policies than completely split and segregate into our own camps, right? I'm more of a, hey, keep the sandbox open for everybody to play in, as opposed to, let's just create separate sandboxes and we'll all go our each individual way. I'm a little worried about a lot of the social media platforms, the conservative platforms, becoming an echo chamber. I asked Jason Miller from Gitter about that, the CEO of Gitter. Hey, are you worried about this? He said, we're trying our best to not make it an echo chamber. But, that's a difficult thing to do. So given the difficulty of creating a bigger open space in which conservatives don't just go over here and liberals just go over here, I'm pro Elon Musk taking an active role in making sure Twitter can revise its policies to not ban people like the Babylon Bee or Charlie Kirk or Tucker Carlson, who I believe are all still locked out of their Twitter accounts. I haven't checked on that recently. So that is that. You know what? There's a great story from, so this story is still evolving, actually. So I don't want to, the story is still evolving, so I don't entirely want to give it all away right now. We're going to talk tomorrow about a big story in the lefty media last week regarding Trump phone calls and Trump phone logs. Turns out that entire story was false. We'll give you a bunch of details, but as I was going through and pulling headlines from it this morning, people are still going with it. So this is a story that was put out by the mainstream media, accepted by the mainstream media, later in the week, entirely debunked. But then over the weekend, a lot of your mainstream media is continuing to double down. So I wanted to make sure we can get all of that into a cohesive story, and we'll bring that to you tomorrow from the road. That's going to do it for us today. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, different place. Going to be in the nice, snazzy hotel room in Phoenix doing the show where we'll talk about the Trump phone call logs and a bunch of other stuff. We'll see how this Sacramento shooting shakes out. I know I went on like a 15-minute tirade on that, but I don't know. Hopefully it was somewhat insightful of how these things work. I'm also wearing a fun t-shirt today. Buddy of mine. Got a pretty interesting company going on. If you're a man under 50 and you want to get in shape, Building Better Man Co. They're not a sponsor, not paying me for this. I just like it. I've been doing the workouts. The right-wing extremist workouts. If you want to do that, check them out. Building Better Men Company. Get your butt in shape. Be a right-wing extremist by exercising. If you haven't already, give me a follow on all your social media platforms. Would appreciate it. At JOBOB on pretty much anywhere. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Getter, all of those. Just type in JOBOB. You'll find me. I'm also hilarious on Instagram. I keep saying that. Holy cow, was I funny over the weekend. If you haven't followed me on those accounts, please do so if you feel so inclined. You can also send me stories and messages, and I usually get back to pretty much all of them. So that's going to do it for us today. We'll see you same time, different place tomorrow. Till then, God bless America.